seen the Odyssey last night. I took a lot away from the story because when I was younger, I thought Odysseus was a king. I thought he was a noble man. I thought he was a mighty man. I thought he was a protector of his people. But about 40 minutes into the movie, I realized that he was a bastard coward, and he was leading his men to death at every turn. And in the movie, a lot of different kingdoms and nations were worried about the sea people, the people of the sea, because rumors were spreading that there were this group of people who were traveling the seas and pillaging and destroying other communities. So because this rumor was spreading, all the other nations had their defenses up. All the other kingdoms, they were all, panicking and getting prepared for war. Come to find out, the sea people is Odysseus and his men. It was at one point, they showed flashbacks of when they conquered Troy, and they literally were just burning the village down, killing women, killing soldiers, just destroying the community. And I believe that's how they won the war, is taking down Troy. And as they were doing this and showing this flashback, I was like, oh my God, he's the seaman. They're the men of the sea. And anytime people would see them, they would immediately get scared, rightfully so, because they were the men of the sea. And they were like, no, we come in peace, we come in peace. But you're literally burning down people's villages. And it's crazy because one villager asked him, like, why are y'all doing this? Like, why are you doing this? And as they were burning his village down, he was like, oh no, we're the good guys. What the hell? and after the war, in Odysseus' first battle, he fights a giant cyclops, and he ends up poking his eye out or doing something to his eye, and he and his men escaped. But as he was fighting this giant cyclops, I was like, damn, that's a god. Now the cyclops technically was eating them. I don't want to say he's a carnivore because it's a fucking cyclops, but he was built like them, so I don't know. But the cyclops was eating them, like he was killing his men. So to defend his men and find safety, they stuck him in the eye. But as he was fighting him, I was like, damn, that's a god. So they finally get out, and one of his men actually say, you just pissed off Poseidon, because that giant cyclops was a son of Poseidon. And when you poked out his eye and it let out a cry, it cried the name Poseidon. So Odysseus was literally attacking gods. Like, he was literally attacking the gods. He was attacking the gods. And mind you, they're traveling by sea. So he pissed off Poseidon, the god of the sea, and now they have to get back on the sea. It's not gonna be a fun ride. So they go through all this turmoil and stuff and all this shit, and then they go to another island and he meets Circe, and Circe turns all his men into pigs. And I thought it was funny as fuck because they were pigs. Like, they were acting like pigs, I thought it was hilarious. I understand how it could be cruel as well, but I thought it was pretty damn funny. But Odysseus convinces her to turn them back to humans, let them go home, whatever. After that, she tells him to go to Hades, I think, to the underworld to speak to the dead. And when he speaks to the dead, all of his dead soldiers come back, and they're basically, telling him he's not shit because they died and he didn't care, and what one of the one of the, I don't know who, I can't remember his name, but one of the prophets told him what was going to happen. And he told him that all your men are going to die. All of them. They're all going to die. The only one who's going to make it home is you. You might as well stop wasting your time because they're going to die. And he was like, I'm not going to let it happen. And the prophet told him, you're going to go here, they're going to do this, and they're going to die. And he was like, no, I'll stop them. And the prophet was like, well, you're going to pass through here, and they're going to hear the sirens, and they're going to kill themselves. And he was like, no, I'll protect them. And then at the end, he was like, they're going to go to the island of the sun, and they're going to disrespect the goddess, and they're going to all die. And he was like, no, I'll protect them. And as they went on their voyage, every time Odysseus would try to tell them the right thing, they wouldn't listen. Towards the end of the movie, they started throwing a mutiny against him, and they just stopped following his orders. They started following like the second person in command's orders, which is crazy because this man don't know what he's doing. So why are y'all listening to him? He's not the one getting the prophecies. Why would you listen to him? So Odysseus' men are not listening to him anymore. They've been lost at sea for years, and eventually he tells them the truth. Like, listen, the prophet told me if y'all do this, you're gonna die. Specifically, the prophet said if they eat the cattle, the cows, and the goats on this island, the god that rules it, the goddess that rules it, is gonna kill them. And he told them that. He said, if y'all eat this cattle, you will die. And they still ate the cattle. Odysseus was asleep, and he woke up out his sleep, and he smelled something. And he walked to the smoke, and they were all sitting in a circle, like quietly eating, the cattle. And he was like, do you think just because you're doing it quietly that the God is not gonna know? Like, I told you what would happen. And they were like, whatever. So they all leave the island. Immediately, it's a wreck. The whole ship breaks apart. All the men die. Odysseus is unconscious. He wakes up on an island with Calypso. And it's crazy because when I was a kid, I remember, like, my perspective of Calypso was that she was like a harlot. She was keeping Odysseus captive, and she was preventing him from getting home. But I'm sure that was an immature way for me to think, because I really, really enjoyed how they portrayed Calypso in the movie, because Calypso actually wasn't trying to keep Odysseus on the island. Odysseus wanted to be on the island. Calypso had been giving him lotus flower, which blurs your memory. But initially she was only doing it because he was so sick and he needed the help. Now, even once he got healthy, he continued to eat the lotus flower. And at times, Calypso would try to get him to remember his past, but I guess he ate so much of the flower and so much time had passed, he had forgot. But in the movie, Calypso was actively trying to get him to remember his past, to remember his journey, to remember his men, to remember what happened. He refused to remember. And when he finally did remember, he tried to blame his absence on Calypso and say, you kept me here and you held me hostage. And she was like, no, you didn't want to leave. And he didn't want to leave. So much so to the point where he actually allowed himself to falsely forget what had happened. He had forgot about his men, his wife, his kingdom, everything. He let everything go. And truthfully, he did it because he felt shame about his actions in Troy. He felt dishonorable. He felt as though he made the wrong mistake when they invaded Troy. And he said it later on the end of the movie. They brought about the end of times in the Bronze Era, and because of the shame he felt, he didn't want to go home. So instead of actually going home, he took his men on all these side quests, fighting all these gods for no reason, And eventually, when all of his men died and he had no one else to protect, ironically, he let himself forget what happened. Isn't that interesting? When all of his men were finally dead and he had nobody else to pretend to defend, now he has no memory. That's crazy. But when he finally did remember, the part that hit him the most was the part I'm talking about, him feeling shame. He talked about how he knew he made a mistake in Troy by invading that kingdom, but he wasn't ready to face the consequences. And a really good quote Calypso said that stuck with me in the movie was, "You have yet to accept your punishment, and you have yet to let go." You have to let go. You have to accept your punishment so that you can truly move on and go home. And he took a scrap of wood, laid on it, and put himself in the middle of the ocean. And a crazy storm happened, and he was unconscious, and he washed up on shore. And when he got to shore, he was home. Literally, he put himself on a floating piece of wood and ended up at home. That's crazy. So I thought that was crazy that chick Calypso said. Another crazy quote that stuck with me is his son, Odysseus' son, was getting trained by one of Odysseus' old trainers, and he was getting his ass whooped. And the trainer basically told him, "You have to open yourself up to your opponent's attack. That's the only way you can get them back," essentially. So he told him to allow himself to be open so that their defense is down. So while they're thinking they're about to hit you, you really hit them. But you have to have an opening somewhere. I thought that was amazing. Another quote that stuck out to me, after Odysseus returned home, he was a beggar. He was poor, he looked dirty, he was a beggar. You know, he had been gone for like 20 years, I want to say. So he looked really rough. And when he got there, and his, I don't know if it was his son, his son, when his son finally realized it was him, his son was like, "Well, don't you want to get cleaned up? Don't you want to, look like a king?" And he said, Odysseus said, "The clearest way to see a man is below him." And I thought that was very interesting. The clearest way to see a man is below him. When someone thinks that you're below them, that's when you'll see how they really, that's when the real character comes out. And it made me think of when he fought the Cyclops, because the Cyclops was huge. It was a giant, and they were like little ants to the Cyclops. But even being as small as an ant to the Cyclops, he was still able to ultimately attack and defeat the Cyclops, because the clearest way to see a man is below him. They had a lot of good quotes in that movie, and a lot of real lessons. One of my favorite parts was when they passed the sirens, and he made all his men put wax in their ears, but he wanted to hear the siren song. So he didn't put any wax in his ear. He made his men tie him to the post so he couldn't jump off the ship and leave. And he started laughing and crying. And afterwards, his men asked what he heard, like what was the song. And he said the song was promises of everything you ever wanted, and the reminder of everything you failed to do. A reminder of all the promises you failed to keep. He said it was everything you want, what you desire most, but you can't have it because what you desire most is already lost. I thought that was I almost cried because I'm a simp, but that's probably some of the realest shit I ever heard. Like, what you want most, you can't have because it's already lost. It's already gone. The time has already passed. It's already happened. And usually that's what we want most, is what we no longer have. You don't really want things you never had. Sometimes, but you don't have this strong connection to it because you never had it, versus the things you have experienced, the people, the memories, that's what you try to go back to. That's what you hold on to. So I thought that was really crazy. But something I realized about Odysseus is that Odysseus is a god. I really believe he's Wednesday. I think he's a god of war. Actually, he is a god of war. That's exactly who the hell he is. Because in American Gods, Wednesday went to the west. And at the end of the Odyssey, Odysseus said, you know what, we're going to head west. The gods told me to head west. But he's literally the god of war. And it's like the story of how we got here. That's what's crazy. Like Homer and all that, all those epics, they're really the story of how we got to this point. Because if you think about what the West is now and what it's become, how did we get here? Well, Odysseus and his men, they sailed west. Or Columbus and his men, they sailed west. Or Wednesday and his men, whatever. But these gods of war, they sailed west. The wild, wild west. So those stories tell how we got to this point. If you pay attention, they're not that old. The Greek-Roman Empire, that was not that long ago. It really was not. So that's stories from a couple hundred years ago. Like, that's literally what's going on. But yeah, Odysseus was not shit. He was actually not a good person for most of the movie, which is why he continued to not go home, which is why he continued to lead his men to death, which is why he continued to act like he could not remember when he very much could, because he did not want to face the wrong he had done. And that's why Calypso told him, you have to face your punishment, you have to take it. And he took it, and when he took it, he changed his name. He became a beggar. It was like the story of Jesus, low-key. Like, he was homeless, he was a beggar, he didn't have nothing. He was real humble. He came back to Ithaca, and he didn't let anyone know it was him. He acted like a homeless bum on the street. His son recognized him. Some of his servants recognized him, but many didn't. And the end of the movie, he beat everybody's ass. He got his wife back. They sailed west. It was really good ending. I enjoyed it because he kicked everybody's ass. He kicked everybody's ass. They were taking advantage of his castle. They were trying to, attack his wife. They were beating up his son. They were just really taking advantage. So he came back. He whooped everybody's ass. No better way to end it, There's no better way to end it. James Patterson, I believe that's his name, the dude who played in Twilight, he played his character so well. There were some scenes in the movie that were so cringy to me, but to be fair, it's a white there are certain things I'm gonna find cringy. Then they're telling the epic, so it's there's gonna be some cringe moments, but some of the acting was a little corny to me in the beginning. But James, he played Antigonus. I can't remember how to say his name, but the bad guy, he played his character too damn well. He had this little eye twitch going on. He had the shit down pack, literally. And I really hated the character. He plays the bad guy too well. I can't believe that he's not a bad guy in real life. He plays it too well. Just like Terrence Howard, when people were saying Terrence Howard can't be shit, you playing the villain too good. This is not a role. This is who you. I don't know. But overall, the movie was phenomenal. Learned a lot. I had a good time. I laughed, I cried, I got angry, I got aggravated. I was entertained. I kind of want to go see it again, but it's really no point for me to. I might go watch the old one I watched in high school. Maybe if I could find it. But I was so uninterested in high school. Like, then the movie was in parts. Like, it wasn't even a whole movie. Like, she had to like play each part, each act. So it was like 4 or 5 acts. I was uninterested, but I'm sure I would like it now that I have the hindsight, and the context. I understand things more. Because I really thought Odysseus was the good guy, and I realized he was the criminal. Like, he's a criminal. He's a criminal, and his story is a story of redemption. But like I said, they headed to the West now. So what the West don't really look like sunshine and rainbows. So I don't know, man.